I worked as a pizza delivery man when I first got out of college. Although I had the opportunity to work under my parents in the family-run business, I wanted to make a living for my own for once, instead of depending on my wealthy parents. They supported me, my dad in particular. He said that I was doing a great job by not using their wealth to my advantage, maybe thinking that I was embarrassing my parents by working in a pizza place rather than living like a billionaire. But I, with my parents' permission of course, changed my looks. Before starting, I got a haircut and dyed my dark hair brown to black. I put in brown contact lenses to hide my blue eyes and got rid of my beard. Finally, I was ready. I applied for a job at a pizza place further from the wealthy side of town. I didn't have to worry about not wearing wealthy clothing as I had a uniform to wear. I always worked day shifts, Monday through Friday, but one day I worked the night shift, and I knew for certain I never wanted to work it again. It was Thursday evening, and I was about to leave the pizza place after the night cook came, but my boss stopped me.
Listen, Maurice, can you work today's night shift?
She asked.
Bob can't make it today. You'll be paid overtime, and you can get tomorrow as a day off.
I liked my job, and I wanted to get a promotion soon, so I agreed. My boss thanked me and left me for the night. A few minutes after she had gone, the phone rang. Domino's? Can you take your order? I asked like I had a million times before.
Yes, I'd like a medium pie and some nuggets, please.
A tired woman's voice said from the other side. I could hear her voice shaking, as though she was afraid. Is that all, ma'am? I asked. She remained silent for a few seconds before saying,
Yes, that's all, sir.
All right, your order will arrive soon. What's the address? I asked.
48 McGuire Street,
she said. Okay, ma'am, your order will arrive shortly. Thank you for calling. I hung up and called the chef to start preparing the food. The pizza and the nuggets were boxed, and I tossed the order onto the front passenger seat of the beat-up Toyota my boss provided for me to do deliveries. The address was only 20 minutes away from the pizza place. I started up the car and began to drive a little over the speed limit to get the delivery done quickly. Thankfully, there were no cops on the road, so I didn't get ticketed. I arrived at the destination shortly. It was a rundown old house with an unkempt, overgrown lawn and wooden front steps. I parked the car and, with the pizza in my hand, made my way up the steps. There were no doorbell, so I knocked hard and called, "Pizza delivery." I heard whispers from inside the house before hearing slow footsteps on wood and saw a woman opening the door.
Oh, thank you, sir,
she stuttered, and I realized it was the same woman with whom I'd talked over the phone.
Unfortunately, I couldn't pay through the app, so I'll have to pay you in cash.
No problem, ma'am, I promised as she took the pizza. She rummaged around her purse in a while before producing a few bills. As she went to hand them to me, her hand banged against the door frame and the money dropped to the floor. I bent down quickly to pick it up and then felt a harsh blow to the back of my head. I woke up to a pounding headache. I opened my hazy eyes and glanced around. I was sitting on the floor, tied to a pole nailed into the wall. The room was old with chipped walls whose paint peeled in many places, but I wasn't alone. Beside me, the same woman who had ordered the pizza was tied to another pole. She had dried blood on the side of her head, plastering her brown hair to her face. Looking at her bloody face, I realized that the blood was dripping down from the side of my face. Where am I? I asked drowsily. A man emerged from the other side of the room. He was tall and well-built. Somebody I knew I couldn't beat in a fight. Great to see you're awake, he said. How do you feel? Where am I? I repeated. What do you want? Just money, the man replied. Money? I echoed. I don't have any money. The man smiled and called over his shoulders, Boys, it's time. A bright light from a huge camera flared and my eyes burned. The man smiled again as the camera started filming. Hello, dear viewers, he began. Thank you for watching my videos throughout the 5 years I've been active here. Today we have Martha Rogers and Maurice Andrews. I felt shocked. How did he know my name? The man walked to the other side of the room and picked up a hunting knife. Then he approached the woman and gave her a rough shake. She groaned and opened her eyes.
What? Where am I? What's happening?
She asked drowsily. What are you doing? I cried out. Are you insane? Quiet, Mr. Andrews, the man teased, or Mrs. Rogers will have to suffer. I knew that the man was going to kill this woman. I didn't know why, but I knew that I was tricked into coming here to become a victim as well. I began to panic as the man raised the knife. He slashed at the woman, but she quickly raised her leg to block the blow. And the man ended up cutting her leg. She cried out in pain, and I desperately tried to free myself. The more I moved my left hand, the looser the rope became. Eventually, I managed to free my hand, and I reached into my pockets to grab the pepper spray I carried with me ever since I was in high school. As the man drew back his arm to strike the woman, I leaned forward and sprayed him in the face. He started shouting in pain. I continued to wriggle until I was set free from the ropes, then charged towards the opposite wall and removed the gun from the rack of 2 weapons. 2 men pushed towards me, but I cocked the back of the hammer at pointing the gun at them and shouted, "Hands up! Don't move or I will shoot." It is probably already predicted what happened next. I took one of the men's phones and called the cops. When they arrived, they arrested the men and took me and the woman to the hospital. I was questioned at the hospital, and I learned that the men ran a channel where they kidnapped and hurt their victims, then ended them. They had kidnapped the woman from the grocery stores a few hours before I started the night shift, and had forced her to bring me to them so that I could meet the same fate as 3 of their other victims. The men were arrested, and I quit the job a week later. My parents moved to California with me, where I became a cop. I saw many things throughout my career, but my experience will probably be the scariest thing I've ever witnessed in my life.
I needed extra cash when I was in college. I wanted to save up so that I could support myself after I graduated. I wasn't a fan of children, so babysitting was not an option. I went for pizza deliveries instead. My boss got me working the night shifts Mondays to Fridays and the day shifts Saturdays and Sundays. I knew that it sounded like a lot of work, but I needed the money, so I was fine with it. It was a Tuesday evening when I arrived at the pizza place. My boss greeted me, gave me the keys, and left for the night. I was left alone in the pizza place. For the first hour or so, I played games on my phone. Then the store phone rang. Pizzaville, can I take your order? I asked.
Would I call the grocery store for my orders to be taken?
A gruff man's voice snapped from the other line. Wow, rude, I thought, but I went on. What would you like, sir? I asked.
I want 3 large pies and a soda, and the largest deal you have.
The man spat.
And make it quick, I don't have all night.
Yes, sir. Is that it? I asked.
If it wasn't, I'd continue.
The man retorted.
The address is 415 Crestwell Road.
He hung up rather loudly, and I began preparing the order. I reluctantly got into the new Chevrolet my boss left for me and drove over to the man's address. The house was secluded at the end of a dark street. It sat alone in the dark shadows cast by lampposts and tree trunks. There were no lights on the inside, and it looked abandoned. There were old concrete steps leading up to an old wooden front door. The front lawn was overgrown, and the bushes hid most of the house from view. I parked the car on the road and got out. The situation creeped me out, but I prayed that I'd get this over with as soon as possible. I walked up the steps and knocked on the door. Only silence greeted me for several agonizing seconds. Then, footsteps began to slowly make their way towards the door. The door was opened by an elderly man. His breath reeked of alcohol and cigarettes, and he was panting heavily like a dog. He had a smile on his unshaven, dirty face, showcasing crooked, tobacco-stained yellow teeth behind thin, parched lips. He had thin, long, greasy brown hair draped over bony shoulders, covered by a stained white shirt. He also wore black pants, which were 2 sizes way too big for him, and were held up by a torn leather belt. Your order, sir, I said awkwardly. The man looked at me with hungry yellow eyes, and I couldn't suppress a shudder. He chuckled in a low voice and said,
How about you come in?
No, thank you, sir, I replied. It is part of our protocol to not enter houses of our recipients. That was a lie, of course, but what did I have to do? What did he know either? The man's smile grew wider, and he said,
I'm sorry, but I couldn't tip you through the app. And I really want to give you a tip.
I wanted to refuse, but I also wanted the money. It could really help add to my savings, and against my better judgment, I agreed and walked into the house. The house inside wasn't any better than on the outside, or the man himself. Paint was peeling off the walls, and the carpeted floor was stained with what looked like old coffee stains. Piles of dirty rags and clothes littered the living room floor, and an old Samsung TV displayed some news channel or something like that going on. The man led me into the kitchen, which was even dirtier and more disgusting than the rest of the house. A stack of dirty dishes sat in a sink full of brown water, and a metallic stench hung in the air.
Wait here,
the man said.
I'll bring the money.
He turned and left the kitchen, walking up the rickety old stairs. I prayed that he'd get the money fast, because I could hardly stay in his house. The metallic stench was overwhelming, and I knew that sooner or later I'd end up vomiting. I glanced around the kitchen and saw a hallway opening leading into the furthest wall. Thinking that it led to the back door, I made my way down it, and soon enough, there was a sliding glass back door. But beside the door was another wooden door. Something about that door seemed to attract me. Curiosity ate away at me, and I made one of the worst decisions in my short life. I quietly opened the door and almost vomited right then and there. A small room greeted me on the other side of the door. The metallic stench was much stronger in this room, and I knew where it was coming from. The floor and walls of the room were splattered with bright red blood, and several garbage bags stood against the walls with something inside. I knew what it was, but I didn't want to believe it. I closed the door quietly and turned around, walking back into the kitchen. Sir? I called. Sir, thank you for the tip, but I just got another order. I'll have to get going now. The man didn't reply, so I walked to the bottom of the stairs and gazed up into the darkness. I wanted to call up the stairs to see if he was okay, but I knew that was a bad idea. Before I could think of something to do, I heard a terrible banging sound from upstairs, as if a shelf had fallen over with something. Sir? I called.
Help me!
I heard the man groan from upstairs.
Please!
I was about to rush upstairs to help the man when something stopped me. Something about the man's desperate cry sounded off, as if he was faking being hurt. I quietly walked back into the nearest room, which was the bathroom, and dialed the cops.
911, what's your emergency?
The mail operator asked from the other side. I'm doing a pizza delivery, but I think something's wrong, I said. I'm in the house, but I don't know. The man seems to be hurt upstairs, and I also found what I think is a crime scene in his house. I think he's trying to trick me. Please, send the cops.
Of course, ma'am. What's the address?
The operator asked. I was about to reply when I heard a single heavy bang on the bathroom door.
I heard that, ma'am.
The operator promised.
What's the address?
415 Cresswell.
Open this door right now!
The man's scream interrupted me.
Open!
I felt my heart beating wildly against my chest, and I knew I'd have to get out of here before I died. There were no windows in the bathroom, so I decided on a different plan. Opening the cabinet beneath the sink, I pulled out a spray bottle of detergent, and in one go, I opened the door and sprayed the man in the face. He stumbled back, screaming in pain and cursing me, and I ran out of the house as fast as I could.
Ma'am,
the operator called.
Ma'am, what's going on?
Please, send the cops here, I gasped, racing out of the house and into my car. I got out of the house. I sprayed the man with some cleaning thing. I leapt into the car and started the engine. As I sped off down the street, I felt the car begin to shake and a scraping sound came to my ears. Oh my god, he slashed my tires! I blurted out before I could stop myself. The operator was saying something, but I wasn't paying attention. I leapt out of the car and sprinted down the road, hoping to get to a neighbor's house. I ran up to the first house's door I saw and banged on it wildly. The owner, a surprised woman, let me in, and with the operator still on the phone, I explained everything to the woman. The cops arrived several minutes after I was safely inside the woman's house. I, with the house owner, went back to greet them. I gave my statement to one of the officers while 3 others stormed into the house, their guns drawn. They came out dragging a man with them. He was sobbing in pain, and the officer sent him off to the hospital in an ambulance, which had pulled up to the house shortly after the cops had. I was told that the man was a murderer, ordering pizzas and lurking delivery people into his house before ending them and hiding their bodies in his garbage bags in the room by the back door. The officers found him in the room, sobbing and cursing me again. He had a knife in his hand, and most likely I had blinded him with a detergent I used. I still worked the night shifts, but after my boss heard the story, she made us deliver pizzas with a partner and a licensed gun to carry along with us.
I decided to throw a Friday night party for me and my friends. My friends are Brian, Justin, Matthew, and Charles. There was 5 of us in the group, and our favorite party food was pizza, of course. Nobody will hesitate pizza. When they all arrived, we ordered a pizza in a deal with nuggets, soda, and a Hershey's chocolate cake, and waited. We blasted some music, played some video games, and had a quick game of ping pong to pass the time. We were all chilling in the basement, as I wouldn't mind making a mess down there. We were in the middle of a ping pong match when the doorbell rang upstairs. I think it's the pizza, I said. I'll go get it. I rushed up the stairs and thundered my way down the hall, opening the door. There was nobody on the other side of the door, not on the porch, not parked in the driveway. The only thing that greeted me were the sounds of crickets. It was eerie outside, so I closed the door and made my way back to the basement. No pizza? Matthew asked. Nope, I replied. Probably some kids playing some of that stupid ding-dong ditch. So annoying. We continued to play ping-pong, and the incident slipped from my mind. 5 minutes later, the doorbell rang again. I made my way upstairs with Justin behind me, and we opened the door. Again, there was no one, but a pizza box sat on the porch. Justin took the pizza inside, and I shut the door. For the rest of the night, we ate pizza and played video games. When we were finally tired, I let my friends crash at my place. There was a double bed in the basement which Justin and Charles slept on a couch where I and Matthew slept, and a recliner where Brian could sleep. I woke up to Matthew shaking me. He was standing above me and looked sort of creepy in the darkness. I opened my mouth to ask what he needed, but he shook his head and pressed a finger to his lips. I have something to tell you, but don't freak out, he whispered. I nodded, and he went on. I think there's someone in the boiler room, he whispered so quietly I could hardly hear. I was awake in milliseconds after hearing what he said, though. He quickly shook his head and lay back down onto the couch, typing something on his phone. My phone buzzed with the text and I read it. I woke up to go to the bathroom and saw that the front door was open. I don't think you locked it. Then I came back downstairs after using the bathroom and saw someone moving in the boiler room. The person didn't see me, but we have to get out of the basement. My heart began to race, and I'm pretty sure I went pale in the face as I responded. Are you sure it was a person? I typed. Of course, Matthew replied. Come on! I took my phone into my pocket with Matthew's help. I woke up everyone and leading them out of the basement. We piled into my room and Matthew called the cops. As he was whispering talk to the operator, we heard footsteps on the stairs. He's coming upstairs, Ryan whispered. Matthew was about to say something to the operator when he went pale and whispered, Someone cut the phone line. I could tell we were all panicked, and the panic grew when pounding started to assault the door. The pounding started off gently, but then grew stronger and stronger until someone was practically slamming themselves into the door. I instantly rushed to the window and opened it. Are you insane? Charles asked. But you have to survive, so what's wrong with doing and copying? I scrambled out onto the windowsill and reached out to the sturdy tree growing just outside. I used to use this tree to sneak in and out of my room as a kid. I slid down the tree to the ground and helped my friends down. When we were all out, we heard a terrible bang from inside. It sounded like a gunshot, but I didn't wait to see what happened. I sprinted across my backyard with my friends behind me. We scrambled over the fence as it would take us too long to open the rusty gate and raced across the road to our neighbor's house. We had to apologize for waking them up, but they let us in after we explained what happened. The police arrived quickly and found a man hiding in my room. He was dressed as a real pizza delivery guy, and upon being interrogated, he admitted that he had knocked out the real pizza delivery guy and had delivered our pizza. He had also simply walked into my house as I didn't shut the door. All he wanted was a place to sleep and, in his words, a house of my own. The cops found a gun on him, and I only could think that he was going to do something to us so that he could live in our house. In the end, along with the rest of my friends, thanked Matthew over and changed our favorite party food to burgers instead of pizza. Even though I wasn't really happy with it. But we gotta deal with